So I got a question by one of you guys about barefoot training and why I like it, and just to get my general thoughts on it, pros and cons. Jacko asked, what's your thoughts on barefoot training, especially in the weight room, since 99% of the footwear you wear in the gym is different than those one would use, let's say, on a rugby field. And that's a great point. The shoes you're going to use in an athletic environment are going to be different to a weight room or to your home. And this is because it's context dependent. Your footwear and abilities are dependent on your environment. So, one of the biggest reasons why I like to avoid shoes in the weight room, unless they're lifting shoes, which have the purpose of trying to produce as much force as possible and help people with limited ankle mobility. So putting that aside, which I enjoy to use, putting that aside, the reason I like to be barefoot as much as possible is because shoes, think about the foot. Let's just think about that for a second. Actually, I've got it right here. I didn't want to forget it because it's an important number. 26 bones, 33 joints, more than 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments put together. Think about that for a second. That's a huge number. Now think about what a shoe does. It's like a physical cast around the foot. Most shoes, let's say, especially the Nike with those cushioned soles, and the Nike Airs with the large air pockets in between. What shoes help in that case is to dissipate force into the ground, which helps take less shear and force through the joints, depending, of course, on your biomechanics and all that. But generally speaking, it helps put less load on the joints from what I've seen and learnt. Now, you take the shoes off and you go do something like a sprint. If your mechanics are inefficient, it's going to expose them. That barefoot position is going to expose those poor biomechanics. Now, but it can also help enhance them. So what I've noticed and what I've tried is for my juniors, a lot of them run a heel strike when they run with shoes. So what I do is I take the shoes off. What happens when you take the shoes off? You get immediate feedback on whether you're heel striking. What happens? It hurts. So it kind of, for most people, it forces you into that position where you're landing on the toe box. Because that's what you want when you're sprinting. You want to land on the forefoot. And so there's where a great benefit of where going barefoot can help in improving running mechanics. Now, what about just general day-to-day? So to continue on what I was saying about what the purpose of shoes, dissipate force, well, in the gym, I want to apply force. Apply as much force as possible so then I can get the requisite physiological adaptation. If I'm wearing something like a Nike shoe or any type of shoe that has a cushion, it has this large insole, it's not going to help me produce as much force as I want. Number two, most of them have a heel. So if most shoes have a heel, what's that doing? It's helping mask ankle, knee, and hip asymmetries and immobilities, especially at the ankle. A lot of people have poor ankle dorsiflexion, so they struggle to get their knee over their toe. And this is a very important function, basic function for sprinting, triple extension, and squatting is probably one of the biggest things. And so if you can't get into that position, then yeah, maybe putting someone in a lifting shoe, I think would be a better benefit than keeping them in a runner or a sneaker if you're American. If ankle mobility is a key function priority for me, so that's why I want to strip away the shoes the majority of the time and help build the intrinsic musculature in the feet that gets so weak. I used to have plantar fasciitis as a kid when I did sprinting, because you think about how much force is going through the bottom of the feet. I go into another video of how to benefit plantar fasciitis if you guys want it. But for now, to kind of help mitigate those types of injuries and unnecessary injuries, I get people barefoot to help improve their ankle mobility and to assess it as well, because then I can see it. If they're stuck in shoes, it's harder to see. And one of the last points I want to say is that so many people don't have any foot dexterity. They can't control their toes very well. And they have quite weak intrinsic foot musculature, which, as I said earlier. So if we think about the first thing that touches the ground, your feet. That's where the force starts from most of the time. Force has to be taken up through the ground, through the full kinetic chain, and depending on the movement you're doing, it's usually just transferred from the ground through the feet first. So if the feet is dysfunctional, if a foot or the feet is dysfunctional, then how do we expect to have requisite mobility in the joints, to be athletic, to produce force, to not get injured? It starts from the feet. So let's start with prioritizing foot ankle mobility and getting people more barefoot. Just try it out. It might be uncomfortable at first, and then you can work your way up, which is another topic that guys like Joe Rogan really like. I haven't gotten there yet. What am I talking about? Barefoot running. Not barefoot running, sorry, barefoot shoes where they have very minimal soles. It's just kind of like protection for your feet to stop, you know, scratches and cuts. And that's something that I'm all for trying out, but just ease into it. Start barefoot walking. In your warm-ups, start barefoot jogging, which I've been trying to do to help strengthen my feet musculature, which have become so weak through the shoes that I've been wearing for most of my life. So I'd recommend that, guys. I hope it's valuable. And Jacko, I hope it's been valuable to you, man. If you guys got any other questions, happy to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm not an expert. I'm just documenting my learnings. I don't think I'll ever be an expert. You know, how do you even become an expert? I'm not really concerned about the titles. It's just about continually growing, evolving, learning, unlearning. Anyway, hope it's valuable.